a hero will rise. The time is near. The legacy lives on. Right before your eyes. No one is born a hero.
Work in the room, but it works on Zoom. How are you? How was your evening?
Great.
Great.
Fantastic.
Nice to hear that. Okay, I'm just going to give...
One more evening left. Could be even more.
Not for everybody. Ella is leaving today. So we have to say goodbye to her in the afternoon. You're also leaving today. Why? Obligations? Schedules? Work? No. Okay, so I just wanted to give you a few technicalities for today, since I'm also going to be leaving you in the afternoon. Yeah, work. Actually, I have to go to my cousin's wedding, so that's why I'm going to be leaving you. I'm just going to see the schedule. Okay, we're here until noon. Actually, at noon we have YCN book presentation at Zorindom, so we're just gonna move over there. Also, after the book presentation, there will be a film screening you will be staying at, and after the screening, we are going to have the transportation that is going to take us to our picnic. It's going to be on the river Mrežnica in one very amazing restaurant, and I hope that you're going to have a wonderful afternoon. That's what I'm skipping this afternoon. I'm not happy about it. And on the evening, Maria is in charge for all your activities. To a wedding, sure. And just one more info. Today, during the day, I will send everyone the info about their pickup. So the pickup for each and every one of you is going to be in front of your hotel to take you to hotels, because not all of you are staying in Karlstad. Will take you to airports, bus stations, train stations, and everything else. I will give you the correct time when you have to be in front of the hotel, and you will be on time for all your planes. So we took everything, you know, in order to make it right. I think that's all the technicalities. Aha, aquatica, thank you. That's what I wanted to say, but I said everything except that. In Saturday morning, there's an organized field trip to the city aquarium. It's a freshwater aquarium, and you can be a part of it. I wrote about it in the invitation letter, if you saw it. It's going to be at 10 a.m., so if you're still staying here in Karlovac, you can join the field trip. It's like a 50% discount for the entrance fee. And there are going to be volunteers that are going to take you through the aquarium, but if you want to go, it would be great if today until 5 p.m. you would just let me know, that I can organize everything with the aquarium itself. Valentina is already going, so if you want to join her, if you want to join her, yes, you can write me in the group or private or whatever. But by yourself? No. No, you're going to have... You're going to have all the group joining you. Huh? Well, the aquarium itself, you can walk through like in 15 minutes. But since it's aquarium, the thing is that you can sit, watch the fish, relax, meditate. Yeah.
No, it's a lovely aquarium, and the closing is at noon, so just have time to come back.
Yes.
Yeah?
Okay, that's it from me. Maria.
One more
Thank you
thing.
for your entrance.
Arne, sit down, please. Teacher Maria. So one more important info. After we are done here and we all go together in the group towards Zorindom, there we will have a group photo under the yellow flag. And I just came up to that idea. So that's because somebody, I know that Boban and Dragan are leaving right after the book and the presentation and the screening. So this will be the only time when we are all together, and I think setting with the flag and everything is really nice. So we'll do it there. Yeah. So now you have info about that as well. So that before we start with Manolis and Lito and nice presentation of the book, we have 2 more people who came yesterday evening or afternoon. So I will just, where is Miro is here? Yeah. I will just, please, Miro, can you say a few words about yourself, about the festival, and the same for you, Alireza, so other people here.
Just to check, did they do the shingling part?
Yeah.
But they had to do it twice because they were...
And I think they both did quite a lot last night. And more is to come in the evening in special organized program for VIZIJA. Joking. So, floor is yours.
So let me start with you.
Okay, good morning. I'm Miro from Dubrovnik Film Festival for children and youth from the Mediterranean countries. But we are also open for the worldwide for the thematic and open category. And this year festival is for 1 month, 13 to 16 October. And submissions are closed and selection is out. But the next edition will be next year, of course. And we are opening submissions early in late spring, actually. And that's all.
Yeah, and just to add, Dubrovnik is really one of the most beautiful
It sounds better when you say that.
And they hosted the conference once.
Yeah, 2014, so maybe 2 years.
Conference again. Yeah, maybe.
No, 2 years I think we are already scheduled, but after 3 years.
Schedules can be changed.
Okay, I'm Alireza, as you may know, from Iran.
They met you last time.
Madrasa Festival based in Tehran. And we just accept short films from 3 different categories: animation, fiction, and documentary for teenagers under 18. Our deadline hasn't passed yet, but it's about to in upcoming days. We've been collaborating with lots of you guys these past few years, and I'm really happy to be here and looking forward to this community.
Yay. Thank you. And now, Ksenia, you can come and present Lito and Manolis.
So, well, actually, I don't have to present them. You know them very well. But Lito's father, Nikos, who I hope most of you met already, he's such a great person, and he has so many, he's such a big influence in Greek. And I'm just sad that he couldn't be here, but Lito and Manolis will present his work, his book. So, yeah, actually, Manolis, I heard that you are talking about it. So, all right. You want to? Yeah.
We have to. Okay, it's on. Thanks all for coming. So we are going to present Nikos Theodosiou's latest book. He's artistic director of Camera Zanio. His book is When Cinema Went to School and Came Back Crying. Manolis is going to explain why is this one, but you can understand that the relationship between cinema and school wasn't the best. For me, just to mention that because there's no relevant literature on this issue, the book is based on Nikos Theodosiou's own long-term research to archives, primary sources, newspaper, and so on, and it's published by Olympia International Film Festival. Manolis.
So, Nikos is a little god, as we say in Greek, to us, because he's really active. He's quite old, but he makes films, he makes books.
Diomir knows that.
He writes books, he makes films, and he just needs a snap to get on his next project. This one was about some university research about thesis on Greek cinema and the school education. So at a point, Nikos got anxious and mad because there is no literature on this matter. So he said, okay, you are all a bunch of... and I'm gonna write, I'm gonna check what's not written in thesis and the already written books. So he has a huge archive, he's very systematic, and he's a big bookworm that goes deep into newspapers mostly and magazines and all these original sources to make up his point. So you will allow me to read it because it's not my book and I have to use some things from Nikos. The book is entitled When the Cinema Went to School and Started Crying, and of course it implies that the cinema did not have a smooth and pleasant relationship with public school, because after the first years and the impression on the new invention, the period of suspicion and contestation was started on the part of the state that wanted an entirely controlled educational system. On the contrary, views in favor of cinema by progressive powers are being developed as a useful tool in a reformed education. So this conflict ended up as a political issue that through different form goes on as today. All these facts are revealed within a period of 150 pages of the book and cover the period from 1900 to 1997. But in order to understand all these things with school and cinema, it's good to see the historical context in which political and social life developed in Greece, and thus the relationship between cinema and school. The cinema made its virginal appearance in Athens in November 1896, that is just 1 year after its first appearance in Paris in December 1895. At that time, Greece was half of what it is today. All of northern Greece was under Ottoman domination, and many of Aegean islands were under Italian occupation and remained so until 1948. Greece's population was only 200.5 million, while today we're about 10-11 millions. The rest of the mainland was liberated during the two Balkan Wars that lasted from 1912 to 1913. But as soon as these war adventures ended, the new war conflict began in Europe, the Great War, or World War I, which lasted from 1914 to 1918. In 1 year later, in 1919, Greece started a new war adventure across the Aegean, where more than 1 million Greeks lived. But the Greek army, before entering Ankara, was defeated by the Turkish army, and this resulted in 1922 the uproar of all the Greek population of Asia Minor and the arrival in Greece of more than 1 million displaced refugees. Dozens of refugee settlements are created in the region of Athens and Piraeus, which is our harbor. And this was quite important because we were almost double in numbers and figures, and there was a big drive for education and making them part of our society. Back to the cinema, the first appearance is in 1998, where we have sporadic film screenings in different cities. In fact, until 1910, when the first cinemas were created, the movie theater was reserved for wandering projectionists. There are guys with a car. Traveling cinema. These are the ones that brought the cinema to the schools in 1900. The projections at that time are limited to showing the students of the new invention, just technical stuff. Teachers explain the functioning of the cinema, and during the Balkan Wars, we had featured war newsreels to students to strengthen the patriotic sentiment and all this atmosphere that we had to cultivate during a war climate. From the moment the cinemas are created, we have an increasing flow of people in this new spectacle that is becoming more and more impressive. And most of all, young people and children are attracted. An aggressive, hostile approach is adopted, both by the intelligentsia, but also the Ministry of Education itself. Reports on the bad effect of cinema on children are crowned, and measures are being taken that prohibit youth entry into the halls. So the state is quite hostile towards young people going to cinema at this time, and I think this is a quite interesting subject to discuss later if you want about what you know in your countries. In Greece, we even had special doctors that were checking children if they are allowed to go to cinema. It was a bit quite hostile against cinema. We have one bright exception in intelligentsia, which is our national poet Kostis Palamas. With his articles in the press in 1915, he fights enemy to cinema ideas and supports the use of moving images as an essential component of modern education. This was not a thing at this time, so it's important that he could perceive the perception of cinema at this time. Only a few isolated teachers followed his advice, and we have a case of a private school of a socialist guy that he's the first one that created a dedicated cinema hall in school in 1916. An important step forward is taking place in the late 20s and early 30s, when the two organizations fighting for women's rights are taken up. This is also quite good to special mention. It's a National Council of Greek Women who sporadically started some projections from 1920. And now it's actively supported by the most radical Women's Rights League. So we're talking about late 20s and early 30s. And they are not only women that they fight for their own rights, but they also understand that we have to use cinema as an educational tool. That is to say, they state in an organized fashion to promote quality cinema for children. They participate in meetings with state bodies, which have concluded in the decision that the office should be set up in the form of a national centered educational film organization to deal more specifically with the supply of suitable films by saving them in special place and with a small fee to borrow them to all ministries, associations, schools, and other institutions. Through these movements, we also witness the connection of Greece with the international movement that concluded in 1927 to the International Institute of Educational Film established in Rome by the League of Nations. League of Nations is the former United Nations organization. Here we must say that there is a tendency to devalue or even ignore the Rome Institute because of the fact that it was financed by the Italian fascist government. It was undoubtedly used for its own propaganda, but also the step towards developing important process in the film of educational cinema. In his administration, there were important personalities among them, and Louis Lumière was among them. This important international move had an inglorious ending when in 1937 fascist Italy was expelled from the League of Nations and the institute was closed. The Rome Institute, or the International Institute of Educational Film, is what nowadays is the Luce Institute in Italy, for those that are familiar with. But they have a dark past from Mussolini, so we don't use to mention them a lot when we go to cinema and education at this time. In the Institute's magazine, we find important contributions, such an article of the Greek teacher Andrea Giannopoulou, who notes that the cinema is of great importance to educating young people, not just for its magical abilities to eliminate distances, but also because it is an excellent tool for meeting the world and his understanding. The children can meet the neighbor peoples of Turkey or Bulgaria, and she's not using these countries as randomly because they were our main enemies at this time, but also people that are far away. So we can see that she uses cinema in the essence that we do this today, all of us here, that it's to meet people and to open our horizons and our windows to the world. For the first time in the school year 1931-32, we have a substantial variation of prevailing cinema perception, when in the syllabus, education in the cinema is treated as art. It's the first time in Greece. In modern Greek class and the theater's teaching approach, the cinema is referred to as another theatrical species, along with the melodrama. At the time when we would call it a small boom in school cinema, we have 4 schools with their own cinema halls, while several others were equipped with projectors and films at their own expense. What the women's organizations were asking for in 29 and 30, to establish a school of morning cinema at the Ministry of Education and Religious Affairs, finally came true in 1935. but it was too late for Greece because a few months later, and while the veil of Nazism spread across Europe, John Metaxas dictatorship was imposed. The Education Ministry specialized office was used by the dictatorial regime as a tool for fascist propaganda. Since 1940, and for 4 years, the country is occupied by Nazi troops, and there is no mention of cinema in schools that they are already not fully functioning. The country's liberation from Nazi troops did not bring social peace, as it was accompanied by a bloody civil war that lasted until 1949 and ended with the defeat of the left guerrillas. Cinema now plays a leading role in this attempt to consolidate the urban state. We see a plethora of portable wandering cinemas in the country that have never appeared until that time. Plenty of films are offered free of charge to the inhabitants of towns and villages, especially in the faraway places. The agencies that have taken over this project are the City of Athens, the City Police, the Palace, the local divisions of the Army, the Ministries of Education and Agriculture, the Government of England, and of course the US Intelligence Agency that has taken a leading role in the national effort. Nikos has showed me the catalog from the CIA that they were bringing films to Greece, and it's very important and funny to see how much they wanted to use cinema's propaganda to schools, etc. And fun fact, there is a film about a Greek donkey named Koulis, which is the name of our now Prime Minister. Perhaps they have something planned since then, I don't know. So, in the 1950s, we have the most systematic use of cinema in school as an educational tool, and more specifically, as a supervisory tool. Schools are equipped with movie projectors that come from America, while the first list of films available in schools is that of the American Information Service with educational films, but also many propaganda. The film spectacle does not satisfy the students seeking a way out to the commercial cinema. The cinemas are sold out. With administrative bans and severe penalties, the authorities try to intercept the current of young people going to the cinema. In this gloomy climate, it sounds like the voice of an excellent pedagogue, Helena Paidousi, that she says, neither it is possible nor to our interest to fence the ears, to cover the ears of our children, to avoid being swept away by the songs of the movies, because they are also necessary. They create, as we've seen, a climate of light in the soul. They have polite visions, give standards that promote confidence and optimism toward action. So we speak about commercial films to be allowed for the children. And it goes further by suggesting the use of the grown-up cinema, the quality cinema, and not only educational films as educational materials. It sees as a prerequisite the state-owned committee that controls the film to give an analysis of each film that has been allowed to be distributed and to be promoted to the public by the media. The proposal of the Greek pedagogue go hand in hand with processes carried out at international level on the initiative of UNESCO. Processes that led in 1951 to the definition of cinema for children and young people as a special category. This is the sense that we also use it in our festival name, which is huge. Successive meetings took place until an organizational structure was established with the creation in 1955 of the International Union Film Association for Children and Youths, known as CIFES. In Greece, neither the proposals of Paidousi are being heard. After all, the abnormal political climate leads to a new dictatorship in 1967. As in the previous dictatorship of Metaxas in 36 to 40, and the same valid for the new dictatorship, the cinema becomes a major propaganda tool. Schools are equipped with machines that will display the status of the scheme. After the fall of the junta, we have, for the first time in Greece, a reference to the issue of the introduction of cinema education in schools. This is a proposal which goes beyond the limited use of cinema, either as a supervisory educational tool or as an entertainment medium. It is claimed as a request from the Greek Film Critics Association, which calls for the cinema to be addressed as an art and as such to be introduced at school. Of course, this proposal, like those of other bodies, is left on paper, and we should wait until 1995, when the pilot implementation of the MELINA program, involving all the arts at school, including cinema, and begins with teacher training for quality cinema in school. MELINA is Melina Mercouri, the known Greek actress that also gave the first fight about the marbles of Parthenon, and she's quite big in our cultural management things because she was Minister of Culture for several years. In 1997, which is the end of this book, we have a qualitative leap. The youth plan, set up by a group of authors for the development of audiovisual communication and the expression of young people, proposes a holistic approach to the issue of cinema in school in Greece. What we saw growing so contradictory and chaotic over the previous period is now set up in a fully documented proposal. So in 1997, we have the first Olympia Film Festival, which is not just a festival, but a network of actions outside the festival, including the introduction and distribution of quality films for children and young people, seminars organizing and workshops for children and teachers, publications, productions, etc. But this is the content of another time span of the 25 years of action of the youth plan. So Nikos chooses to stop this chronic in 1997 when the youth plan was established. Youth plan started conducting the Olympia Film Festival, and also had a cinema, which was the only distributor in Greece for films for youth. They were making films specialized to youth issues and what we say youth films, and a lot of workshops and digging the soil throughout the whole Greece to bring cinema education as a non-formal, in a non-formal way. And we speak about times that we didn't have a camera on us, so the first approach was the children to touch the equipment and see the visor and know how they can do something about that. The youth plan is active still today. We are now establishing again a production department to help our films for youth. And we've made quite a big progress with the Greek Film Center about making special mention for youth films, giving extra credits, and promote this subgenre for the Greek because it's not well established in people's thoughts and in directors. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Manolis. Lita, do you have any comments at this point? No? Okay. So I would give the floor to you. Do you have any comments or questions after hearing all this at this point?
It's a bit Greek, I understand it, but it has some very nice points about how women gave their fight in this age when they couldn't even vote and they were fighting for their own rights, and now they are also promoting cinema for youth. The thing with the international movement about cinema in school and how we approach this matter, and yes.
But the thing you mentioned for army propaganda and everything, I think that was everywhere, especially in the Second World War and afterwards. And I know that, for example, here also we have, and when I was once in...
But you can see that we couldn't catch a break in turbulence and war and dictatorships and all these things.
As I understood correctly, the book is not in English.
No.
Okay, so maybe one of the things to help Camera Cisanio throughout the network to translate it, maybe to think for the group that is making the funding and proposals, and when you're thinking about all the submissions. Okay, any comments? Yep, okay, Rhiannon first.
I think that's an important point, that we try and get it translated into English, because it might be a bit Greek, but what it does, from what you've told us, it sort of it shows the position of cinema with all the issues, all the different things that have happened in that period. It was still there of an importance that would help us, I think, to actually show in different countries, well, it would with us, the importance that you can attach to cinema. So I think it would be really helpful.
I'm also very interested in creating a comparative analysis in each country, how it went the first 100 years of cinema, especially in school, because it's our domain.
Yeah, so if you can contribute in any way.
And there is no literature internationally. There are sporadic fragments here and there, but yeah.
First of all, I would like to thank you to bring this book here and to present great work of Nikos Theodosiou. It is not only historical material he presents about film. I know how much he has a collection of photos and information from the past and from the film history. And second, please be so kind and bring my congratulations to Nikos Theodosiou, and that I am waiting, like Riano told, English translation. But in meantime, please send me your presentation in English and visual material so I can put on the media education website and social network to promote something what I think that is very important for the future of film. Thank you.
You can send the text in the WhatsApp group if that's okay.
I was working all night. So
yeah, so now we have to distribute it all over.
I have to share, yeah.
Yeah, Philip, you wanted to say?
This is one of the first cinemas in Thessaloniki. The building is actually still there, but not as functioning as a cinema. And he has a funny title because we have a lot of pictures of children drawn by the ear that they are crying because they couldn't be and they shouldn't be in the cinema for the grown-up films. So there is a lot of, and they are all shaved because of laces and punishment, but also the laces and laces.
The lace
yes.
In the hair.
So they are all shaved and they are dragged like this, and they wear the same clothes we all know from this time, and it's quite a funny image.
Philip, did you want to ask something? No? Okay. Hannah?
Yeah, I just think this is really a great job because, yeah, they're missing literature about this, you know, so after generation needs something to know how the stuff developed. Also in Slovenia was pretty much the same. Actually, film education was quite very good established until 1970, and then shut it, you know, and it just after like 20, 30 years we start to put it back. But it might be that we, not in Maribor, but Ptuj, which is kind of one of the oldest cities in Slovenia, have cinema from 1905, which is still running. But the same, shut it down in the middle a lot of times and then now working again. So I think this is kind of history. We really need to research and write down and put it somehow, you know, or let people know that this exists and that is very important. Yeah, thank you.
And what was going on in schools? Because Nikos has registered the first cinema halls in the school. And yes, it's very interesting to see that in 1905, an inspired educator thought that he should make this place as a cinema hall for his students.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting that this history stops in '97, because what happened after that? How much was that a foundation for the time after? Because 2000 is for me the start of the digital revolution. Everything changed. The young people could get into film in a totally different way. There was not film anymore. And how did that happen in the schools then? What happened after?
You mean 2000 or 2010?
2000.
2000.
Yeah.
But we had films in 2012. I mean, the main projection medium was film.
Yeah, but I mean, in Norway, we changed to video.
Yeah.
So, and also the presentation of film in schools, like the education of in high schools went to, they were called in Norway media communication. So, and the kids started learning on video themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a movement which you couldn't control at all.
Yeah.
And but this book tells about a foundation of film cinema education. But how did that change in Greece with video then?
Nikos stops it in 1997 because it's the establishment of Youth Plan, the organization that had the systematic approach and implemented all the first actions in Greek cinema education. So we now celebrate the 25 years of Youth Plan and Olympia Film Festival, and it's his next project.
He also mentioned that at the end. Yeah.
It's a bit marketing trick, but after 1997, we have the first concrete actions about a whole approach about cinema education in school as an informal education tool, and going in Greece, all over Greece, with workshops and screenings, and yes, for young people always, with projection and screenings and film education lectures and all this thing. And we have also Olympia Festival that kind of opened the way for this dialogue in Greece. We now have several film festivals for youth. We have a huge plethora of workshops, etc. So it's a matter of another research that goes after we have opened the gates, let's say so. Because there is also the kind of adoption of the state. So when they accept that we are the national film festival for youth and the institution that brings all this material to the public area, there are more people trying to mimic or trying to assist or trying to do something different and creative. I don't know if I've covered you.
Yeah, and maybe just to add up, I think Herman was trying to say, like, from the perspective of youth, they now had more opportunities to themselves to film and everything, not for other people to get them to touch the cameras or something. If I'm okay.
A quick answer would be our catalogs, our festival catalogs. That we have 100 jobs, 50, 80 per year. So we know that these schools are working with cinema education and they produce their own films with or without our assistance.
Okay. Any more questions or comments whatsoever? No? Okay. Actually, just recently, a few months ago here in Croatia, our selection, one of our persons from selection committee, Ana Đorđić, that most of you also know, she published her book, Film in School. Ana will be here throughout the day afterwards and tomorrow, so you could talk to her if you want to know a little bit more in detail about what she wrote in her book. It is also not translated in English, it's in Croatian, but it was her doctoral work. She also did a bunch of research, and yeah, it's also pretty much the similar. And I know, for example, my parents, they had film education in school and everything, but I didn't until the high school basically, but we were lucky in Karlovac here because our school is one of 7 in the whole Croatia that has a class of film education that you could attend. So it's, it got neglected. So I don't know, Does anyone want to comment, or maybe on how is it in your countries? I mean, I think it's pretty much similar everywhere, and that's what we are fighting about and trying to promote film education. But Miomir, Paulina, did you want to ask? No? Okay.
Okay, you motivate me to tell a few information about last Danube Plus. It was in Subotica, and in Subotica it is one of the oldest cinema in today Serbia. In former Serbia, first cinema was built in Belgrade and Niš 98, but in Subotica is still working cinema, city art cinema Aleksandar Livka. Aleksandar Livka was traveling cinema owner and go around Austro-Hungarian monarchy in that time, and the reason why cinema has his name and why Subotica has first cinema in Serbia is because in Subotica he fall in love with one Subotica girl and stay forever in Subotica, and today this cinema is still working. So it is one nice story. Thank you.
Just to mention that even now in Greece, cinema is the only art that is not be taught in schools. The only art. Welcome to the club.
And when it started, it was the ultimate art that included all the others.
All the others, yeah. Music and dance.
Theater and...
Thank you, Lito, for the statement. Maybe it could be the... Not
Please just tell that for some people. The thing is, you were saying about you have
in our city, and I think in the most high schools in Serbia, we have in regular education class called media education. So it is about 5 years ago that our school, Gymnasium in Gornji Milanovac, started that program, and that program are now in regular education. So Maja and Dragana run it, you know. Rhiannon knows. So just to...
Okay, Robert, I saw you taking notes during the presentation, so.
Because yesterday I was selected as kind of leader of the task force for media education, and as we are going to meet again in March, I was talking with Valentina as well. I'm suggesting that we have one topic there. Maybe it would be possible that some of you could give comments and give statements on the situation in your own country. So that would be very interesting for me, as the discussion is the same in Austria at the moment, and I'm really interested. So it would be a nice start for the group.
We also have now for last, I think, 3 or something years, like official selective program, film education and media education, because these are not really the same. But in practice, we have the plan, you know, so teacher can teach this and can have students. But in practice, actually, a lot of teacher is not really have enough knowledge to do it. So it's not really realizing. Just maybe in few schools where teachers are more brave to experiment, to do it, you know. And it doesn't have any other fund to bring filmmakers in the school just to do it properly. So it's kind of a lot of issue. But actually Slovenia for last 10 years did a lot on film education, so I can make a presentation. And we also have a few books just in Slovenian about the history, because from 1950 till 1970, 75, it was Mirjana Borčić, a girl, who actually put her life in film education, and she also established the point of view that film should be just art medium where children can say that they're taught, you know, not to be helper to do some film, but just express through media. And I think this is something our generation just try to follow, and I think it's good.
Thank you, Anna and Hannah. And I'm sure this idea with everyone sending at least a short brief would be really nice, and we need to make sure that that happens. So you had a comment?
Similar to what you just mentioned, in the U.S., there's two systems. There's a public school system, and then there's the private schools that, you know, if you have the money, the means, you can obviously attend the private schools. And because those schools are, you know, funded independently, there are more media arts programs, there are more film making programs there with more intention, more access. But for public school systems, there's like no arts education, like not even music. Like it's very hard to find it. And similar to what you just said, you kind of had to make it happen. So for me, I was in the public school system, and my English teacher went to film school, but he missed film, so he made it into his curriculum in English class. So you have to kind of make it work in that way if you still have that passion. But yeah, it's just something interesting that I was thinking about throughout the entire presentation, how people just have to make it happen when there's no access. And even now that we have the phones, you could still like encourage people to make films, and those public schools that don't have the funding or the ability to have programs, it's good that we exist, because we're like, hey, you could still tell a story with this type of access that you have, you know. So that's pretty much it, what I was thinking about.
Can I say this?
First. We had a big, our distribution department has the concept of making educational files. So when we propose a film for a school, we have a complete file with before, during the screening, and after the screening, talk, lessons, film education. So it's a more complex approach for the children and the educators, because at some point it's always educating the educators as a multiplier for expanding the cinema education. So we made the suggestion to the Greek Film Center, and we're very lucky that it get approval and has quite a good money. And now we're gonna have a big film library with, I don't know, some hundreds of titles, and 4 children and youth institutions are writing files for this film library. So we're gonna have a compact and big film library that you can use as a teacher in school, and you have all the material you need for the theme, for the cinema, for the film language, to help you go to the classroom and have a lecture, a class, a lesson for cinema. So this is a good new project for us in Greece.
As a closer, if you allow me, because Nikos Theodosiou is struggling like 20 years now to bring cinema into schools, I would like to use one of his quotes during another conference. What we actually want and what is our main goal, maybe also yours. We want cinema into school so that film education leads to a democratic education. That's all.
Sweden? Do you have any comments?
Everything is, I think, I'm sitting here thinking about the situation in Sweden. I work myself in the schools with teachers. They are as important as to work with the kids and the classes. And they have their smartphones and tablets and everything, but I bring them cameras when they are about 12 years and older, and they edit computering and everything, animations, and we try to work with to make the teachers involved and how should you say, to feel safe with the technique.
Yes, because sometimes in a workshop it can be too tricky, too technical, too difficult, and they feel overwhelmed, and they do not know how to implement this without the assistance of our kind of people.
Yes.
And so when you are alone in the classroom, you have to know exactly what you're gonna say, and they don't feel secure to go a step beyond.
And when I meet the teachers for the first time in a project, I always talk to them first. I tell them, I still have to tell them and remind them what a film project will carry for the kids and for themselves, the teachers. There's a long list of things, and yeah, you can do this and you can be successful. You can make the kids go on their own afterwards with the telephones or whatever. So sometimes I call them up or visit the school again, you know, like, how's it going? Yeah. And also the Swedish Film Institute has a department for film schools and this education in elementary schools. And we have a school bio, like a school cinema system, that we are trying to develop to put short films into it to make them watch short films and
we
talk.
will start crying.
And to talk about the, you know, to analyze the short film. It's easier for them to understand what have we seen. We can discuss it from another view. And then a feature film, there are those lärarhandledningar. What would you call it? Yeah, the documents for you know, discussing the films. It's really a big thing. So, and there are many people. We are not many people in Sweden, but we are quite a few. More and more people seeing the importance of filmmaking and film discussing and embrace film in the education context. Really. So we're hopeful.
Thank you. Germany, maybe? Philip, Arne, any comment?
Yeah, Philip, maybe you can say more about. I'm just want to say what Hannah said was very important to me, because the word media education is such a big word, and it's like kind of a slogan. We should do educate and media, but what is it? And I think our main goal should be the film education part, and that's what we are looking for. But I don't want to, because you said a lot of things, and I can totally agree, or I'm listening to what happens in Sweden. So congratulations, and Philip.
I agree with Arne. It is important to make the difference what means media education and what is film education. So in Germany there's one gymnasium in the country. We have over 80 million inhabitants, and there is one school with just doing films. The film gymnasium in Babelsberg, because there is a film school besides that in this town, so they have the main subject is their films. So there are many projects, because different organizations that support film education do their thing. And there are, because we are a federal republic, so every state do their own things and try something. And yes, and there was, since years ago, there is a movement to say that says we have to imply media education as a subject with with an hour in a week or something, or but it's always neglected, or we don't do it. It's in the curricula. It's Querschnittaufgabe. Oh God. Yeah, it's a task for every subject to do a little bit media education, like in German or in English, or besides sport and the science subjects. Okay, you can now make a film in a science subject about gravity, bonk. Yeah, but it's not that subject. So yeah, it's quite difficult, and yeah, we have a lot to do in Germany, and yeah, and the Swedish your work is great, and I guess in Denmark it's really great too, and you in Norway did a really good job, and yes, we can learn from each other because of another. So I guess questions.
Any other final comments from the audience? No? Okay. Okay, we have few people on Zoom. I've seen Pete's name over there. Pete, are you with us? Hi, Pete!
How's everyone doing?
We're great, and how is everything in Ireland? How is Limerick today?
Limerick's fine. It's still doing what Limerick does. So yeah.
Okay, so
yeah, just to say though, I mean, the conversation here has been really helpful. It's really interesting hearing all these perspectives and getting an opportunity for everyone to contribute to this, you know, after the fact, and bringing some of their own national experience would be really good. I'm sort of listening with particular interest because later today I've got a meeting with a teacher who's going to be one of the first in the country to be taking its student through presenting a film project as her art piece for our sort of big national exam that we take more seriously than we should. So that's really interesting because he's a very well-intentioned person who does understand film a little bit, but there's a lot of navigation to go through it. But it's like a lot of people were saying there, that because of the risks involved, you know, already the young person who's doing this has been shuffled across a couple of teachers because most of them won't touch it because there's a sort of, you know, there's a tendency towards conservatism there. So yes, it's all very interesting. I'm really interested in hearing how people, just any insights on it. The big question at the moment is trying to work out how it's going to be assessed so we can reverse engineer a project so it actually can be assessed by someone who doesn't have a clue about film, which is going to take a bit of work. But yeah, there's just some things that are happening here.
Thank you, Pete. We are sorry that you're not here with us. Okay, thank you for this lovely conversation. Thank you to Lito and Manolis, and say a big hi and thank you to Nikos. And now we can have a short break, but really short one, like 5 minutes to stretch your legs, and then we'll continue.
A hero will rise. The time is near. The legacy lives on. Right before your eyes. No one is born a hero.